Hey y'all, I'm Reese, and welcome to Making Meaning. Making Meaning is a podcast by the Cohere Collective, and we are here to help you make meaning in a way that makes sense for you by sharing stories of how other people make meaning in their everyday lives. This week, I am joined by my best friend, Tyler McCall. Tyler and I met in high school at Lake Hill Preparatory School in Dallas, Texas, and are still really close friends to this day. We talk a little bit about how Tyler is actually the friendship that I've probably had for the longest, and how our long-term friendship has really impacted the way that we've both seen each other and how we've viewed relationships and how friendships can grow as you both grow as individuals, and how we can start by having this really immature high school kind of just best friendship that's turned into something really, really beautiful and rich and meaningful. Now, Tyler is a senior SMU student, and she is double majoring in business and poli-sci. So, with all of that being said, let's take a deep breath. And get started. Hello, Tyler. Cheers.
Hello, Miss Reese.
Drinkies. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Wednesday, your school week, to sit and talk with me and just chit chat. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for inviting me. I've been waiting for you to invite me since you told me you were going to be doing this. I was like, oh my god, such a cute post. Every time you post an episode, I'm like, oh my god, so good. She hasn't texted me.
She hasn't asked me yet. Was waiting for the perfect opportunity to make sure it hit the right moment, right? So to get started, I just want to ask, what is something that you are grateful for right now?
Something I'm grateful for right now? I am really grateful for the support network in my life.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I'm I don't really know how much background on me is going to be given. I'm
Right.
a college senior right now. It's my last semester probably. So kind of in a huge transitional period, and not really knowing, obviously every kid my age right now is going through the struggle of not really knowing what's going to be next.
Yeah.
Where they're going, which is a really hard thing and has hit me pretty hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think I'm very lucky in the support network I have. My family is has only grown in importance in my life in the last couple years. I talk to my parents all the time. I feel they're my best friends. And they've been really, really good. I mean, I think a lot of people, there's so many different pressures you can have from your parents.
Yeah, facts.
For stuff like this right now. And the only messaging I've been getting from my parents, even though I'm kind of struggling to get something planned out, is just you're smart, you're amazing. We're always here for you.
Yeah.
If you need a gap year, take it. If you want to work, go do that. We're behind you with whatever you pick, which I think is really, really lucky to have.
Yeah.
That. And then my roommates, my boyfriend, they always just have nothing but love for me. And so it's just being surrounded by that support during kind of a hard external time.
Yeah.
I'm super grateful for.
That's really amazing. And I think having the awareness that that you have those really good people in your life that not everyone is lucky to have, but also parents that see you and see your goals and your dreams, and they know that you're gonna get there, so they're willing to let you do your thing until you do get there, I think is really special. And so I really love that we started with that. Okay, next question, and then we'll kind of just go in whatever direction this takes us. And you can take that in whatever that means to you, if that's however you hear and interpret that question. I want to know what your story is.
Well, oh, that's tough. I mean, I feel like, for like business school, we have to practice interviews all the time.
Right.
It's always the first question is like, tell me about yourself. And they're like, give the past, the present, and the future. Like, so I feel like I only ever talk about really SMU because, when you're in college, you don't really talk about like high school. So,
right.
I don't know, that's tough because I feel like everywhere I've been has contributed to my story, but
yeah,
I feel like that's also a super long story to give.
That's all right. I want to hear it.
Okay, I mean...
Well, I know I've heard a lot of it already, but I want to share it with people.
Well, okay. Do you want me to start with, like, where I was born? Like, what is the story? Where does it begin?
Wherever you feel like your story began. So one time I was interviewing my colleague for the podcast, and she was like, I really don't think my story starts until I got to college, because that's kind of when she was like, my life began. And other people were like, my life began when I was born in 1995.
I know,
so,
like, I want to hear what everyone else did so I can conform.
You're like, what is the benchmark?
Okay, well, I guess mine probably also starts, like, when I was born. I wasn't born in Dallas, but, like, I've grown up here, like, since I was conscious. You didn't know I wasn't born in Dallas? Are you being serious right now?
Wait, no, I didn't know that.
You definitely
We've talked
knew that.
about this. Okay, that's right, because you were in,
Arkansas.
Yeah, that's right.
Born in Arkansas.
Moved here, like, when you were, like, 2, right?
Yeah, I was born in Arkansas, and then we moved to LA for, like, a year or something.
That's right.
And then moved here when I was 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty much lived in Dallas my whole life. I went to Lake Hill, from kindergarten to senior year. So that was my life for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've had, at least until I went to college, like, I feel like my life was characterized by stability. Like, lived in the same town. I mean, like, I moved houses, but I moved from, like, I don't know, 5 minutes away from school to 1 minute away.
Yeah.
So
still the same area.
Like, same area, same school my whole life.
Yeah.
With, like, kids that I'd known since kindergarten. Like, my family, like, I don't have really older or really younger siblings. Like, it's me and Matthew, and he's 2 years younger than me. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like all of that was just, it was the same for a really long time. Or not the same. Obviously, I was different when I was 5 than when I was 10.
Right.
And then 15. But
a lot of consistency.
Yeah. Which, honestly, now that I'm explaining it, I actually think that is a big part of, like, who I am, was the fact that I grew up with, like, consistency and stability, like, around me pretty much all the time.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, my parents, my mom is from Dallas, my dad's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. My mom went to Lake Hill as well, and then SMU. My dad went to public schools in the Oklahoma system, and then OU. My mom... I
didn't know your dad went to OU. That's funny.
Really?
Yeah.
OU for undergrad and med school, actually.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, my mom was a lawyer. She retired when we were in, like, maybe middle school to be, like, a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And then my dad is an eye surgeon. So, and then I have a little brother who's 2 years younger than me. His name's Matthew. So, yeah, I went to the same school from kindergarten to 12th grade. That was a school my mom went to for her whole life. My little brother also went there from kindergarten to 12th grade. It was K through 12. It was private school, really small, like 30 kids-ish in a grade, 400, something around there in the school.
Which is crazy. And so we met in high school, and I graduated with a really small class too. But every time that I tell someone that, like, yeah, I graduated with a class of 22, they're like, are you okay? Like,
no, yeah. Like, at SMU, whenever I'm like, oh, I went to private school. Oh, I also went to private school. I'm like, yeah, I went to, like, a really small private school, though. And they're like, oh, no, me too. I only had, like, 150 people in my class. And I was like,
no.
You are going to be shocked by what I'm about to tell you.
Yeah. Prepare to have your world rocked. Well, people even say, like, oh, no, like, the public school I went to was really small, like, 100 kids. And I was like, that was, like, my high school was 100 kids. So obviously you said that the stability of that, and because so many kids do go to Lake Hill for life, where they start there in kindergarten and graduate from high school from there, why what else do you think staying in that same place meant to you? Because I think a lot of people would look at that as stifling, and other people would look at that as like a really great opportunity to explore things. And I know we've talked about that, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I had plenty of friends. I don't think we have, like, not a ton of kids leave from lower school to middle school. Like, some do.
Right.
But, you know, it's not, like, a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Like, a couple kids leave, but it's not, like, a big exodus.
Yeah.
But a lot of kids leave from middle school to high school.
Yeah.
Especially kids that have been there for a long time. Most of the kids that have been there since, like, kindergarten are either, like, have kind of known the whole time that they're going all the way through, or like want to go. And so I had a ton of friends that left in 8th grade, and I think stifling is the right word, like felt like that environment was stifling for them.
Yeah.
I think that I didn't necessarily, I don't know, I didn't want change. Like I enjoyed the stability and like the consistency was extremely comforting for me. I saw myself having 2 different opportunities for growth, and I felt like I could have either had the growth of moving to a big school where I didn't know anyone, being the new kid, going to a new environment.
Right.
Or I could have had the growth that I got at Lake Hill of being in a small school, of having more opportunities.
Yeah.
And I picked the second one. That was what was right for me, just personally. And I honestly never felt stifled by it. A ton of people do, even kids that like stay through high school, like a lot of people do end up feeling that. I just like never did. I always loved it. I've always been super like high achiever, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
don't try and cushion that. You are an extremely high achiever, and I think being in a small environment lets you lean into that and find the most of that.
Yeah. You know, even in kindergarten, I was like uber concerned with getting all, like, I don't even know what they gave, like
gold
E's.
stars instead of like red stars.
Yeah, we didn't even get like A's and B's. Like we got E's for excellent or something on our report card. But I was like laying awake at night as a 5-year-old, like, oh my God, I need to get all E's on my report card. Like, would have probably killed myself if I got, like, if my little, you know, oh my God, you know where they have, like, the behavior charts or whatever, and, like, you want to be in the green, and if you get, like, a yellow, you're, like, on probation, and then a red is, like, you're in big trouble.
Yep.
I never got outside the green. I was, like,
Damn.
had my eyes trained on that little, like, green square in
little
my pocket.
Thing,
I was like, oh my God,
yeah,
gotta stay there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't really know. Like, I can't really pinpoint like something that made me like that. I honestly just think I always have been.
It just worked for you.
Because it wasn't like I was, you know, not that I wasn't normal, but like it wasn't like I was a normal kid in lower school and I had pressure put on me like throughout middle school or something to be the best. Like, I just think I've been self-motivated to like achieve highly, like literally since I was 5 years old.
Well, and everything that you're saying, like you said, at 5 years old, like even the most helicoptery parents aren't going to be like 5-year-old child, like make sure you're achieving, hitting these marks. I think most parents are like, you know, if they're going to go there, that starts to happen like maybe like 4th, 5th grade, and then it kind of kicks up. So obviously very internally motivated, and a lot of that pressure came from yourself. But also with being a high achiever, I'm like, there are some things that I think are intrinsic to people, and other things that, you know, aren't and are environmental.
You know, honestly, like, reflecting on it right now with you, I almost feel like it's maybe not necessarily that I was born, like, a high achiever. Like, I don't know if that was intrinsic to me, but that I was born, like, a people pleaser. And, you know, even when I was 5 years old, I could understand that when I got, like, getting good grades made my parents happy, and I wanted to make my parents happy. Because my parents were never, like, they were never helicoptery, like, like, why don't you have an A+, like, blah, 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 this isn't good enough. Like, I was never told that I wasn't doing good enough, or that I needed to do better. Like, they emphasized the importance of hard work and success and all that stuff, but it's, like,
not couched in the, you're not good enough, but couched in the, it's good to strive and work hard for things.
Exactly. But it's, like, they've always been very much, like, if you get a B, you're not a failure. Like, you can get things that are less than perfect grades and still be amazing and wonderful, you know? Right. So it's like, I never had that kind of pressure, but I think it's just like, ever since I was like a tiny little, you know, toddler or whatever, like, I understood that when I behaved well, it made my parents happy. And so that's why I was like, I think that's why I'm a rule follower.
Yeah. So do you think that intrinsic kind of feeling of being a people pleaser, or you have this quality that you were born with where you're able to read people, like, that's kind of a necessary trait to have in order to be able to tell when you are making people happy? Do you think that that's kind of something that you've always had?
I mean, I think I read people pretty well. I don't know that I was ever, like, super self-aware of that being, like, a quality that people could have, probably until, like, middle school, maybe.
Maybe more of a subconscious thing that you were just doing to try and make other people happy.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's, like, has contributed to a lot of, like, the qualities that I didn't even know I was developing, but, like, you know, being well-behaved, like, because I know that it makes people happy when, like, it made my parents happy when I was well-behaved, so I was, and it made my parents happy when I got good grades, so I pressured myself to do those things, not necessarily maybe even because I knew I wanted to do those things, but I knew that that was going to be, like, the happiest outcome.
Right. So you kind of just foreshadowed my next question that I wanted to ask you about, and saying not because it made me happy, but it made other people happy. Have you ever had a moment where, like you said, you started to become kind of self-aware about why you're doing things, how you were operating, where your people pleaser tendency shifted into being more about pleasing yourself, or realizing that, you know, you can also have these experiences that are just for you and not for other people?
Honestly,
or not? That's kind of a leading question. So
I think that's, like, something I still struggle with, and I think it's something I wasn't aware I struggled with until really recently. But, like, when I first came to SMU and I was, like, really struggling to make friends, and I kind of just had Mary, you know, and, like, Ben, and I didn't really have, like, any friends outside of that for the most part, and, like, I still remember, like, you know, talking to Mary and Ben and being like, I just feel like such a failure because I know my parents want me to be... I was, like, upset because I knew my parents would be sad that I didn't have friends, and that made me more upset than, like, actually not having that many friends.
Like, you were happy having your people that you did have, your small circle.
I wasn't necessarily happy, but... no, like, I mean, it was a much bigger factor than I think a healthy person would consider.
Well, I think you're a healthy person, and I do think that, like, everyone has this moment growing up where, especially for people pleasers, I'm like, you know, I can relate to that, and, you know, being the one to put the pressure on yourself, not anyone else saying you have to do this, or, like, if you fail, you're not good enough. It's like that coming from you to try and make other people happy, 100%. I'm like, I totally feel you. But I think everyone has a time where, whether it's college or, you know, they hit the professional working world or whatever, and they realize, like, I'm not in this same environment anymore. And you kind of have a realization of, oh, this is who I am, and kind of who are you when no one else is involved, right? It's like, now that I'm not just this kind of function of my parents or function of my school and that friend group, who am I when I'm just by myself?
Yeah. Well, I kind of had a moment with that. So my dad has always been super, like, I think maybe more so, like, my mom has too, but particularly in the last couple years, my dad has been, like, a really big proponent, probably more so to me than my brother, if we're being honest, like, of, like, you should be doing what makes you happy, like, not, basically what we're talking about, like, do what makes you happy, and he's, like, always sending me articles about how, like, you know, for example, you shouldn't take an opportunity just because it is a good one. You should take it because you want, like, he's a huge proponent of that with me, I think, because he, like, I think they're very aware of, like, how I am and, like, the pressure that I put on myself and, like, the unhappiness that I generate for myself with that.
Right. And not, you can't, I mean, every kid is different, right? Like, not every parent is going to be sending those types of articles to their kids, right? Because some parents are just trying to get their kid to take good opportunities, right? But in this situation where, you know, you already have the baseline of wanting to succeed, you are a high achiever, you have goals that you want to hit, but what you might, like, what a bigger challenge for you is the fulfillment piece.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I'm a double major with poli-sci and business. Just sort of fell into both of those tracks by chance at SMU. And I was freaking out about, like, scheduling for next semester. I was like having to choose between, like, a poli-sci, like, research class or business class, and, like, all decisions are just, like, super crippling for me. So that was, like, a huge stressor for me for like several weeks. And, like, one day I just, like, flipped out, and I, like, called my dad, and I was, like, crying, and I was like, I don't even know if I like poli-sci. Like, I like being told I'm a great writer, and I like getting all A's, right? And I like being told I make really great presentations, but it's like, I don't know if I actually like poli-sci. I just like being good at poli-sci. You know what I mean? Yeah, 100%. And so I was, like, freaking out, and I was like, I've spent 4 years, like, doing these two majors. I've never even given any thought to if I even like them. Like, I just like to be good at them because I like to be good at things. And he was like, you know, I mean, he was basically just like, and I was like, I've wasted all my time. I'm out of time. I can't do anything else. And he was
change now.
And he was like, you have not wasted your time. You're 21 years old. There's a million things you could still do. And he was like, I'm really happy that you're reflecting on, like, what makes you happy and not just what you'll be the most successful at, because those are two different things. And he was like, I'm really glad that you're thinking of those two things separately, because, you know, I think it'll save you pain in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. And I think most people in college have that moment of, like, oh my God, what did I spend the last 4 years doing? Because it goes by so fast. You're told to commit to things so early on, and then once you hit a certain point, it's like it's the point of no return, right? But there's some stat now that's like only 20% of people get jobs in the area that they got their degree in, right? I think it's a really common thing for especially people that are driven and want to grow and want to be good, right? And all of the different meanings of that word, to be a lifelong learner and to not let that kind of, one, education process, but two, like, self-education and self-growth process that college brings, stop there. And I think you're very much that kind of person where it's like, you've always just liked learning too. Like, even when we were in high school together, like, you enjoy learning new things and talking about new things. So, yeah, I don't know. For whatever that's worth, that's what that made me think of. Something else that I wanted to talk about as we're kind of talking about these things and your parents and how they support you. When I asked you to tell me your story, you also gave a little bit of background on your parents and on Matthew, and you were saying that, you know, your family has only gotten more important and bigger in your life recently. Why do you think that you feel such a tie, I suppose, to your family in that way, that your story really is a part of their story and their story is part of your story too?
I think that's tough. I think I think they make me understand unconditional love. And that, along with stability, like, in my mind, part of stability is, like, stable happiness, stable love, stable relationships. And so for me, like, stable relationships are super important. Like, you know, one of my friends from SMU and I were talking just kind of about our, like, we check in, she'll be like, how's your boyfriend? I'll be like, good. How's your boyfriend? Like, good. How are your roommates? Good. Like, you know, how are the boyfriend, how are the roommates, how's class, blah, 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 all that stuff. And we were, like, talking one time, and she was like, you know, I think you just like stability more than me. I like excitement. And, which is true, like, she and I are really different in that sense, where I feel like I'm not unstable as a person, but it's like I have a lot of stuff going on 24/7. It's like, between like classes and like the extracurriculars I'm doing and like the jobs I'm working, it's like my life ever since, you know, even like freshman year has been extremely chaotic.
It's a constant stream.
Right. And so it's like the external world is always chaotic for me. And so it's like when the relationships in my life are not chaotic, when those are calm all the time, that is super, super important to me because, you know, I can't like control the assignments I'm given. I can't control like, you know, organizations and stuff, but it's like I can control whether or not I know I can come home every day and someone will be there that wants to hear how my day was, that will take care of me if I'm upset. You know what I mean?
You can choose the people to surround yourself with.
Right.
And that gives you, it's almost like the stability is a soft place to land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that I have a ton of people in my life now that do that, but I can't have known anyone for my whole life besides my family, right? So it's like my family has done that for me since I can like remember. You know, my parents have been, I have like the best parents in the world, you know what I mean? And so I think the older I've gotten and the more chaos that has come into my life, the more instability and stressors that I couldn't have even fathomed when I was 16 that are actively part of my life now, it's like the more I have come to understand and appreciate the unconditional love that I get from my family and like how much better like they make my life by being a part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I do think sometimes you know, there's that saying that's like, you don't know a good thing till it's gone. It's like there are certain things that you have that have always been there that you just don't realize are so important until you hit a certain point and it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I've always had this, but not everyone has that.
Right.
And it gives you that place to land and that place to decompress and to find balance too, because you're 100% right. Like in high school and all the way through now, you're just someone, you love committing to things, you love being involved, you love helping other people, and that takes time. So to have people who understand that part of you, that aspect of you, and are going to support you in doing that and advocate for you doing that and doing the things you want to do, but still like make space for you to not be on and to not be constantly trying to like help other people or please other people, then you can take a breath.
Well, and I think that the consistency of knowing people, I was talking to Mary about this, my old roommate, because she was my roommate, you know, freshman and sophomore year, and still my best friend last year and this year. And so my current roommates I've really only known since the beginning of junior year, kind of same with my boyfriend, end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year. So it's like they're a huge support system for me now, but they really don't have a lot of like background on me. So it's like they can offer me comfort in a different way than my parents do, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, I think that, you know, when I go to Haley and Eleanor for like comfort, it's like they probably know me the best now.
Right now.
They know the present Tyler probably better than almost anyone. And so it's like they can give me advice and help from a perspective of knowing me currently very, very well.
Yeah.
Mary has seen me go through the last 4 years. And so it's like, you know, Haley and Eleanor know about the things that happened to me freshman and sophomore year, like generally, but Mary was there, like she lived them. Yeah. And so it's like she can give me a different perspective of like really knowing me for the last 4 years. Yeah. And then like, you know, you and Lovely, I don't see y'all quite as much now, the same way I did in high school when we were together every day, but it's like you guys give advice from like a different place of any of my college friends, of having seen me grow in who I was in high school. Yeah. And I think the same thing, it come back with my parents. Like they know me better than anyone because they've seen me better than anyone because they've seen me grow and seen who I was the longest.
The entire time. But I think it's interesting because there is like a different intensity in moments with different relationships, in that like time spent certainly is going to make someone like understand you more in that certain frame of your life. But also, you know, you have those friends that you see and it's like, oh, you pick up right where you left off or whatever. There are people who are always going to know things about you because they lived it with you. You were talking about with Eleanor and Haley, your current roommates, that they know the Tyler of right now. And I think that language really speaks to how we all go through these different phases, and there's different parts of us that kind of come alive at different moments in our life. What different Tylers have there been, and do you think that there's a through line of the same Tyler that's always kind of been there and always going to be there, or that you really have like 180 new person throughout your life with all these different phases?
I mean, so I think that to the first question, like what changes, it's just I know more.
Yeah.
Is what I would characterize it as, like, and not in the sense of like academically I know more, but
like
it's like
experiences.
Right. Like my high school Tyler could never have fathomed Rush. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's something, that sort of social experience, the strength that you have to get through something like that is something I know now.
Anything else.
And I only know it now because I went through it. I could never have described that. Like, high school me just didn't have that because I'd never had that experience. You know what I mean? And so, like, I just think my dad said something to me, or actually I think it was my mom. I don't even know what I was complaining about. I was complaining about something. And my mom was like, sweetie, it never gets easier. You just get better at dealing with it.
Yeah.
Which is really true. Like, you know, it's just always going to keep getting harder. Like, in high school, I never had the issues of making friends at a huge college where people came from very different, like, mindsets than I did.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't have to worry about paying bills or making my own money. And it's like, that's something that's only going to get harder. But, you know, it is just you get better at dealing with it. And I think that's what kind of changes. But I would say that there's been, like, I have a consistency, like, in myself. You know what I mean? Like,
I would agree. I've known you
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, you could probably answer it because you've known me for what?
6-7 years? 8? Wait.
6. You came my...
6. Junior year, your sophomore year, my junior year.
7. Sophomore, junior, senior for me. Sophomore, junior, senior. 4 years
freshman.
of college.
That's crazy. 7 years. Wow. Okay, also it's crazy to think, because I was thinking about this. You're the friend that I've had for the longest, because so many people have, like, childhood best friends, and of course I have friends that, like, I'm still kind of in touch with, and, like, we follow on Instagram and stuff, but you're the only friend that I'm, like, I've been consistently in contact with that long. And I just think that, like, this is so tangential to what we were talking about. But in terms of, like, relationships, you really have seen me grow in so many different ways. But I agree. And I just think it's in terms of you having this through line, and yet you've completely changed in so many other ways. But there are so many things about you that I'm like, that is just Tyler. And it's never going to not be a part of who you are. That, like, fun-loving spirit and that energy of, like, wanting to just enjoy the everyday. And you can't even put into words, like, everything that is, like, being in someone else's presence. So it's like, I don't think I could even vocalize for you, like, the things that are consistent about you. But you have been, like, that stability for me. But it's also been so cool to see, and I'm sure, like, you've seen me grow in different ways too, like, how you are still, like, my friend Tyler from high school, but, like, you're also now, like, my adult friend Tyler who we can talk about this kind of stuff with, you know?
I think you're very similar. I think you've changed a lot, but you're also still you. Like, very much so still you.
That makes me happy, because I think, like, bless you.
Thank you.
While it's good to change, there is a certain, like, you-ness that I think... It's like it's your magic, you know, that you don't want to lose.
And I think especially, I mean, I don't go to TCU, so I can't speak to it, but being at schools like SMU and TCU where there is a ton of pressure to change.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, obviously, I feel like I probably had it easy, like, coming from, like, you know, like, my parents aren't, like, don't own a $13 million company, but, like, from a well-off family, it's like, I already had a lot of privileges coming in, which, you know, there's plenty of kids at SMU that have had a lot less than I have, and had a much bigger shift and much more pressure even than I did.
Yeah.
So I obviously, like, want to acknowledge that. I've been super lucky, but, like, you know, the small things where it's, like, everyone's blonde, and I feel like maybe I should have blonde hair, or, like, everyone likes to, carry their, like, everyone carries their stuff to like class in a purse, and like I don't like going to class with a purse. I really prefer like a backpack. But like, I know it's such a silly example, but it's like freshman year I kind of felt like not feminine enough, but like that I wasn't fitting in with the girls on the campus because I was using a backpack and I didn't look as cool as they did or whatever, you know what I mean? Or, you know, this is like my pet peeve. I hate golden gooses. I think they're literally the stupidest thing ever.
Same.
My parents are like, Tyler, isn't it the same as ripped jeans? And I'm like, no. There's a difference between ripped jeans and literal mud on the shoes. Like, it's so stupid looking. Yes. Oh my god, I hate them. I hate them so much.
Same. Isn't it the same as ripped jeans? That's an interesting
like, yes, but also
argument.
No.
Yes, but no.
And I can't explain why. Just yes, but no.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
And I mean, like, not to say that if my parents ever listen to this and they hear me, like, no one needs designer stuff, like, you don't need to buy expensive stuff. They're going to be like, liar. Yeah. I'm not saying SMU hasn't given me some expensive tastes.
Right.
So I'm not trying to like rag on that, you know. But it's just like, there's pressures like that to where it's just like, I just don't want it. Like, I don't really care to have golden gooses. I don't care to have like a Louis Vuitton bag. Like, it's just not my preference. Yeah. But it's like, you know, it's kind of hard being in environments like that.
I was about to say the environment that already is like naturally comparative. Like, it's so hard in our age demographic, specifically among like young women, but just in general at college, when you see the same people every day that are in like a very similar place to you, obviously, like you said, there are drastically different worldviews at any campus, university, whatever. But when you're in that kind of similar demographic, it is impossible not to face comparison.
Right. And so I think it's, you know, especially at campuses like that where it's such a bubble. Yeah. Where it's hard to not, like, I think it is kind of hard not to change yourself a little bit. Yeah. And so I think it's, you know, I actually don't even know where we started with that, but I had a really good point about SMU and TCU that I forgot now.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, you were talking about how you can't really speak to TCU, but going to college campuses where the value system of like the majority of the people there might be different from us.
Yeah, I think it had something to do with like not changing. I don't know. I just think it's hard on college campuses like that not to change the little things about yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that doesn't necessarily change, like going back to, I guess, the heart of you, right? It doesn't necessarily change the like you-ness of you, but it could definitely change how you approach certain things and how you treat certain people, you know? And I think it's good to be cognizant of that to make sure you're not changing in ways that go against your value system. Yeah. And make sure that you're still growing. But, okay, kind of changing gears a little bit. Okay. To flip back to Lake Hill. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot of the private schools in Dallas are religiously based. Lake Hill is not one of those. And I know for me, that was a big driving factor in going because, I mean, this podcast and my blog and all the things can attest, I really wanted a place where I can explore and not be told, like, this is the one truth, where I could, like, stay curious and stay open-minded, and so not having to, not being required to go to, like, mass or chapel, and then also having, you know, we had such a wide range of different worldviews at school because we had a huge foreign exchange student population. Mm-hmm. We had a considerable amount of Jewish people as well, which I'm like, I don't know what this says about me, but I'd never really talked or been friends with someone that was Jewish before. Mm-hmm. And so I learned a lot about that worldview and their culture and also their religion and the difference between culture and religion for Jewish people. So there was just so many different people that went to Lake Hill that I was able to learn from. But you obviously went to Lake Hill from a young age. Were you raised religiously? Was it important to your parents that you go to a non-religious school? And what are the positives and negatives of a non-religious schooling experience?
Okay,
so in terms of private school, right? Because obviously public schools aren't religious.
So I was, like, sort of raised religiously, like, kind of flexibly religious. We, like, went to church when I was little. We'd typically go, like, every week when I was little. Mm-hmm. We went to the church on SMU's campus, actually.
Oh, that's a really beautiful church.
Yeah. My mom, I think, is we've never really talked about it because it's never been a huge thing. I think my mom's
Yeah.
religious. I mean, she's kind of...
But clearly not super religious if
Yeah.
you don't even really
I mean, we're not, like, a mass family or anything.
Yeah.
But, like, I know, like, once we kind of got older, so I went to church, like, when I was younger, kind of stopped going for a while, and then my parents got me confirmed in the Methodist church when I was 12.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And my brother did too, and then after that we didn't do church anymore.
Check the box, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like, I think that it wasn't important enough to us to have that be on our schedule just because we were all so busy.
Yeah.
So it just kind of dropped off. I don't really think my dad is religious. Again, these are kind of speculations because we've never talked about it openly. I'm pretty sure, actually, my dad has. He's not religious.
Okay.
He's not, I don't know if he's atheist or agnostic, but he is not religious at all.
So when you say religious, do you mean, like, atheist? Not religious, do you mean atheist? Or do you mean doesn't have one specific religion but still, like, has a belief in higher power? Or maybe, like, a mix of those two things?
I'm not really sure. If I had to guess, based on pure speculation, I would say probably atheist, because, I mean, you know my dad. He's super science-driven.
Yeah.
And so he's, like...
He's very analytical and
super
thoughtful.
Analytical.
Yeah.
And so he's very much like, there was no day of creation, there was the Big Bang, and here are 5 books about the Big Bang and, like, why we know it happened.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So he's super, like, human-driven, I would say.
Yeah.
So I would guess he's probably atheist. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then my mom is, I presume, Methodist Christian, since we went to a Methodist church.
Right.
She's not, like, crazy religious or anything, but, I mean, I presume she at least somewhat was, since we grew up going to church.
Right.
And I can't imagine that it would have been my dad's idea.
Right. You're like, it had to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Like, she likes to go to church on Christmas Eve.
Okay, yeah.
We typically do that probably because of her, because I don't really care that much. My dad doesn't. I don't really think my brother does.
But I mean, there's also something to say because for me, religion and, like, this is going to sound funky, but religion and faith are so different to me, that religion really is about, like, a community and tradition, right? And, like, your actual habits and ritual and that kind of thing. Whereas faith is actually about, like, your belief and do you believe in a higher power or not? Do you have some sort of spirituality or not, right? Yeah. And so I think that it makes perfect sense to me to, like, enjoy the ritual of, like, going to church on Christmas Eve without being, like, a devout Christian, right? That there's something nice about lighting a candle and having a moment for reflection around that time with your family that doesn't necessarily have to be about baby Jesus.
Right. I think it's interesting because I would say that we were raised in, like, a religion optional household. Cool. I don't really think my parents ever pushed me one way or the other super strongly. Like, obviously we went to church, but my parents never forced us to pray at night or something like that. Right. And
it wasn't like you had your embossed Bible and
like, my dad, he obviously is happy to explain why religious things were actually science things.
Yeah.
But he never, like, got mad at us for, like,
asking questions,
owning a Bible or something like that. You know what I mean? So it was like, I think Matthew and I were both kind of, like, raised having the option of understanding what Christianity was, having gone to church, understood my dad's point of view. I almost think that my parents both presented their side and then just let us figure it out on our own.
Well, and that's really cool, actually, because I think a lot of, couples would really struggle to strike that balance, right? So that's, to me, really admirable that your parents were able to do that. That's really impressive and really cool. But 2, especially growing up in the South, I feel like it's so important that you have a baseline understanding of Christianity because we are in the Bible Belt, right? Mm-hmm. So even if you don't believe in Christianity or in, like, Southern Baptist, which is, like, the most common thing here, most of the people around you probably do. And even for just understanding cultural things, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's important to have some sort of baseline knowledge. Like, one of my roommates the other day was telling me that she only watched, it was it was some TV show, but she was like, I had no interest in the TV show, but I watched it because everyone was talking about it, and so I needed to understand it.
Right.
So I kind of feel like you could do the same thing where it's like, I really don't have an interest in religion, but I'm going to study it a little bit so I have some sort of baseline to do it. But then also from a parenting perspective, so really cool that you and Matthew had the opportunity to like understand it, but then also you're able to make up your own mind.
Yeah.
And do your own thing and think critically for yourself.
Well, and what's interesting is Matthew and I like went in two different directions, I think.
Oh, really?
Matthew's not, if you're listening to this, Matthew, I'm not trying to speak for you. He's not a devout Christian by any means. You know what I mean? But I remember, like, so growing up, you remember he went to, actually, I might not have known you at this point. He went to Kanakuk. Which is like a Christian
I remember
camp.
that.
And he didn't go because it was Christian. He went because all of his friends were going and he wanted to go.
I don't remember him going to Kanakuk. I remember hearing about
Kanakuk.
Yeah.
So I would, and I don't know that he's like, he doesn't go to church or anything.
Right.
But I would definitely say that, you know, once we both got past the confirmation thing after like 6th grade and we were kind of figuring our own stuff out, he went in, I would say he was a little bit Christian. Like, I definitely think he believed in like God and like Jesus, and I think he probably like prayed a little bit, and I went the other way. I definitely strayed more towards my dad, where I was like I don't know how to describe it. I just like believe that things come from people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to kind of speak to what I was saying about your dad earlier and what you were saying about your dad, you are also a very like analytical person and a very logical person. Not to say that you don't like use your feelings or like have your emotional connections with people and that kind of stuff, because of course you do. But when it comes to like thinking through things, you're very logical. And not that religion or spirituality isn't logical, but I think there are certain aspects of it that you can't explain, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you can't explain every aspect of a belief system, that makes it really hard for someone who's really has really strong like critical reasoning to be like, I can still buy in.
Right. And so yeah, I don't know, we kind of both took after different parents. And I actually remember, I think I was probably like a freshman in high school, maybe freshman or sophomore. I was like young-ish, and Matthew was definitely still middle school. But we were at dinner. I like still remember this. We were at dinner one night, and he and my dad were like in this argument because Matthew was like, he was basically trying to argue like, why couldn't the creation story be true? And my dad was like, it's objectively not true. Like, we have scientific evidence, blah, 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 blah. And I was arguing for Matthew's side.
Oh, interesting.
Like, not because, I don't know, Matt. Like, I have always had a soft spot for Matthew. It's like, anytime.
Y'all are really, really close.
Yeah, anytime he was ever in an argument with one of my parents, like, I was always very quick to defend his side.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't like seeing him sad and stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, and like at the time, you know, I feel like a 6th grade to 8th grade, like reasoning, articulation, that's a pretty big difference. So I was trying to like help him out.
I mean, truth.
And I like, we finally got down to it where I was like, I like kind of figured out what the point of contention was. And I told my dad, I was like, Matthew's not saying that you're wrong, but you're saying that it's impossible for like that to be like you're saying that it's objectively wrong to believe that creation is how the world started, and a belief can't be objectively wrong. And my dad was like, you know what, like, you're right, sorry Matthew, blah blah blah, and we kind of moved past it. But like, I don't know, like,
interesting.
I think even though, I mean, none of us were very strongly one way or the other. Maybe my dad was a strong atheist, but that's like probably the furthest we would go. Like, but we definitely kind of went in different directions with that. But I don't really know how he is now, like, because I'm not around him all the time. Like, we just don't really ever talk about that. But I think that's how I would characterize my like growing up with
experience.
Religion.
Yeah. So after your confirmation and you kind of start exploring and thinking about your own belief system, whatever, do you think there was ever a conscious moment of like, I am going to sit and think about religion, and then you came to the conclusion of like, you know, I really think I fall more on the side of like, it's from human beings? Or do you think it was more of a kind of gut feeling where it's like, no, that just really doesn't sit right with you, and that you're, well, I don't want to say gut feeling because I don't want it to sound like I'm reducing your belief to that, but more of an intuition where it's like, that just doesn't make sense to me, and it just kind of clicked that it's like, no, it has to come from humans.
I don't think it was ever a specific moment. I think part of it was a gut feeling type thing.
Yeah.
Or intuition, but I think my attitude towards, like, religion was very closely tied to, like, sort of what we talked about earlier, like, just how I am as a person.
Yeah.
Because, you know, growing up, it's like, this thing has to be done for volleyball. Someone has to do this for volleyball. I have to do it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get good grades if I don't study every night. I'm not going to, you know, if I got in fights with my friends, well, I'm going to be unhappy unless I talk to them about it.
Right.
And so it's like, I've always had a very much like nothing's going to happen if I don't do it.
Yeah.
Which I think has been exacerbated by the fact that I take on leadership roles where, like, that's almost reinforced.
You are the person where, like, the buck stops with you.
Objectively true. Like, yeah. You know, if I'm the president of an organization and I don't do anything, this event's not happening.
Nothing's gonna happen.
So it's like, I think those experiences have kind of compounded that feeling in me. So I think that was kind of my process with that.
Yeah. Of course, it's good to, like, turn to someone for help. Like, we all need help at certain points. But unless you believe in an interventionist God, right? Like, if that's your belief system, then you can do that. But I think it's actually pretty rare now to find even really spiritual people that believe in an interventionist God, even if you do believe in that. So I'm like, my opinion on, like, prayer has almost shifted to where I'm like, it's almost a form of meditation, you know? And I'm like, I can see value in that. Sure, there's synchronicities, and I believe the universe listens to, like, what we need, and, you know, if you put bad things out in the world, bad things are going to come back to you, but no one else is going to save you. Like, you got to save yourself.
Yeah. I would definitely say, I don't think I'm atheist. Like, I think I'm probably agnostic. Like, I think that, like, this sounds, like, dumb, but it's, like, I do believe in, like magic in the world, like, beauty and love and, like, good things like that.
See, that doesn't sound dumb at all to me, but, yeah.
So it's, like, I definitely believe in, like, higher powers. You know what I mean? I just don't think, I, like, don't subscribe to, like, a religion with that, you know? And I think, honestly, Lake Hill is probably a big part of that. I don't think that the school itself ever enforced secularism, but and tell me if you agree with me, I feel like, so when I came to SMU, there's a ton of Christian kids at SMU. Yeah. And, like, my roommate, she's pretty Christian.
Oh, really?
Mary, yeah. She did.
Oh, I knew that. I was thinking Eleanor
Like,
Haley.
our sophomore year. Yeah. Not Eleanor Haley, but, like, our sophomore year, like, she went to Bible study and stuff. Yeah. And, like, I was shocked when, like, my freshman year, that was a huge culture shock for me at SMU, coming to campus and hearing girls casually talking about their plans to, like, go to church on Sunday, because I kind of feel like being Christian was, like, taboo at Lake Hill.
That is so interesting, and I wonder if that is part of, like, what reinforced some of my worldview, too, which, not that, like, I certainly wasn't, like, calling myself a Christian when I came to Lake Hill. That phase of my life, like, was behind me, but I was certainly, like, in this exploration phase where I wanted to stay open-minded, and kind of how you're saying you're agnostic, I feel like that's very much where I've been since, like, right before going to Lake Hill up until now, where I'm like, I just want to stay really open and learn as much as I can, and then be able to use my own, like, thoughts and reasons and feelings to form my own opinions about, you know, the universe. But if someone came in and started, like, no, I believe in, like, this very traditional practice, I almost think it was taboo to be traditional and to then not think further about it. You know, think really critically about what people are telling you. Don't take anything at face value. Take it one step further. And so I think for me, when I heard someone say, oh, yes, I'm Christian, I have these very, like, traditional practices, it was, you're only Christian because your parents said that, not because you might actually believe it.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, you know, I grew up K through 12, so I grew up with there was, like, 3 Jewish guys in my grade.
Yeah.
So I went to all of their bar mitzvahs. They did, what's the Jewish version of Sunday school? Is it just Sunday school?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
They went to, like, temple on...
Right.
I feel like Saturday is the Jewish one. They went to temple, like, once a week. Like, a lot of them, like, had, like, jobs at temple. Like, they could read...
Right.
I think they could read Hebrew. Like,
yeah.
It was... I mean, it wasn't, like, a topic of conversation because we didn't go to a Jewish school, but it's, like,
right.
We all, at least I feel like the people that were friends with them were pretty clear on, like, what their religious practices were. Like, that wasn't a secret. And that wasn't taboo. You know what I mean? It's, like, we all thought it was, like, cool
I wasn't
and fine
even
and whatever.
really close with them, but I feel like we were, like, acquaintances, friendly acquaintances, and I, like... fully knew, you know, what the dealio was.
Right. So, like, they were open about their religion, and, like, even, like, in high school, like, the Muslim kids, I felt like were pretty decently open about their religion, and no one thought that was weird. Like, I never felt like anyone thought it was weird when the Jewish kids talked about their faith, or when the Muslim kids talked about their faith. And I almost feel like the school tended to, like, do you remember that whole thing where, someone gave, like, an anti-Muslim presentation, like, it was he gave like he used that super Islamophobic article for like something in Davis's class, and everyone got pissed because I think we all grew up with, like, at least this was my perception, that Lake Hill educated me in a culture where, like, Judaism and Islam was normal, except not Christianity, which I think is interesting because it wasn't like we were taught secularism, right? Because Judaism and Islam, those were talked about, but kids who were Christian did not talk about it. And, like, I think I've seen, like, after we've left Lake Hill, kids that almost came out as Christians. Like, kids I see openly posting about their Bible study, like, their church groups. Yeah. That since we left have come out that never talked about that at Lake Hill.
That's such an interesting point, and that's so true. I wonder if... because Lake Hill was a pretty liberal school. Like, obviously, there were, like, conservative people that went there, but in terms of, like, education policies and kind of mindset, I think that a lot of our leadership did fall on that side. And I wonder if there was kind of this conflation of Christianity with conservatism. Right. And so it was...
I actually definitely think that's true.
Okay. Because, I mean... growing up in the South, I think that there is a correlation there, but that's not causation. Like, just because someone has a certain religious practice doesn't mean they believe certain things politically. But I think it was also the same way someone would, like, come out as Republican. Wow, I'm like stuttering now because I just had never thought about that. But I think that's actually a really good point, and probably informed a lot of both of our worldviews and comfort with agnosticism, and both of us kind of taking on that title now that, like, we were surrounded by, I mean, you obviously much more than me because you grew up at Lake Hill and I only had 2 years there, but being surrounded by wonderful people from all walks of life and it just being normalized. Yeah. But the more common outside of Lake Hill things, I feel like were taboo inside of Lake Hill.
Yeah, for sure. I was so shocked when I came to SMU and heard people openly talking about, and, like, not because I consciously, I mean, it's such an unconscious bias in me because of how I was, like, you know, like, not raised at Lake Hill, but how I was socialized at Lake Hill. Yeah. To where I was like, I can't believe that, like, there's people openly talking about going to church. Like, I feel like they should keep that secret. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that was, and obviously I've unlearned that. Like, right. You know, living with a roommate that was Christian, like, we actually used to talk all the time. Like, she would come home from her Bible studies and we would just talk about, like, what she learned, and she would, like, explain it to me, and I would, like, ask her questions about it. So it's like, I've been socialized out of that, but definitely the first time I came, that gut reaction was, whoa, this is super not normal. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's like an odd thing. And I think it makes sense too. I think socialized is such a good word for it. Like, no matter where you are, whatever is the norm there, especially when you're growing up, is what your subconscious kind of clings onto and adopts. I also think it's really wonderful that you and Mary would talk about her Bible study stuff, and obviously, like, you still have, if you were going to pick an umbrella, you'd pick agnosticism, but
I think that really speaks to your natural curiosity as a person and your lifelong learner kind of attitude, and that even if it's not going to like completely change your practices or your worldview, like you still want to give other people that space to share with you and to learn together, which I think that's really lovely.
Yeah, I think it was like uniquely symbiotic for us.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't know anything about Christianity really. So like, you know, she would come back and she would tell me things that I like hadn't learned. And it's like I was learning about Christianity. I was becoming more informed on the religion. And then like also when we would talk, like sometimes I would be like, well, that doesn't seem right to me. And she would be like, honestly, like I don't think it's right either. And that's like somewhere I struggle to like follow that teaching. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it was a really uniquely beneficial like relationship for both of us to have. I don't know. I kind of miss that, honestly. Like my roommates now really aren't religious at all. So, I mean, Eleanor's Jewish, but like neither of them are super like as Christian as Mary was. So it's like, I'm just really not learning about that stuff anymore like I was when Mary and I lived together.
Right. Well, that is super interesting. And I feel like really beneficial for me to hear about and to like acknowledge our shared experience of that. And like that really helps me identify some unconscious bias that I probably have too about that. So thank you for sharing that. I'm glad we got to talk about that. Okay, we are actually over our time. So we're going to wrap up with 2 final questions.
Okay.
One, is there anything that we missed that you want to talk about that you were like, it is important while the mic is hot to bring up, or because we talked about something, you want to clarify something or anything like that?
Honestly, like, I don't think so. Like, I think it was really interesting, our discussion about, like, Lake Hill and religion, because that's something I've identified, but I never really made the connection of, like, probably because Lake Hill was liberal, Christianity was almost like repressed because it was associated with conservatism. Yeah. Like,
which I think is so interesting for a private school in Dallas too, because so much of what I would associate with any other private school is really conservative, like rich white people that send their kids there that are probably like Christian and conservative, you know? Yeah. And Lake Hill is certainly like the odd school out in that sense. And so it's almost like they rebounded so hard the other way that the students saw that culture as taboo. Right. So interesting. Things to think about.
Things to think about.
Okay. And then my final question. One word. In one word. And because you're a writer and all of the good things, you can't hyphenate. You can't do any tricks. How do you feel right now?
Happy. That's such a dumb word.
No, like, everyone always says like, oh, that's a dumb word. And I'm like, no, it's a perfect word.
I don't know. I mean, I like never really have introspective conversations, but this was a very unique experience for me. Like, I don't really feel like I ever just sit down and talk about like and unpack like my story or unpack like religion and like Lake Hill and religion or my relationship with religion. Like, I just don't really have much cause to have insightful conversations like that. So I feel very satisfied about like the things that I uncovered today.
That makes me really happy. And me too. It's honestly a big reason behind, I think, my desire to start a podcast is because, or to have started a podcast is because it kind of formalizes and gives credence to like having conversations like this, because you can't just like walk up to someone at a party and be like, hey, tell me your story. Were you raised with religion? Like, they'd be like, excuse me?
Sounds like a fedora wearer, like, tell me your story.
Yeah, like in a slam poetry coffee shop, that's what I would encounter. And so it's like, I don't want to be that person, but this lets me like connect with the people I love, and I always learn something new. I'm like, even though we've been friends for 7 years, I feel like I learned more about you. So thank you for being so open and giving with your energy and your time, and I'm really glad we got to do this.
Of course, me too.
Okay, I will see you after I turn off the microphone. Thank you all all so much for being here and listening today. Today, while I was editing the pod, a video that I was watching a couple days ago occurred to me again. And in this video, the person I was watching said that human beings are meaning makers and that in any instance, they will make meaning. And of course, that really stuck out to me simply because of the language and how it mirrors the title of the podcast, but also how meaning making isn't a choice as to whether it's going to happen or not. It is simply a choice in how we're making meaning. So I hope that by listening to this podcast and being a part of the Cohere Collective, you feel like you are making meaning in a more intentional, direct way. That's the goal anyways. So again, thank you all so much for being here and listening to this episode. Thank you to Podington Bear for making Meanings theme music, and if you want more info about today's episode, head to thecoherecollective.com and click on blog. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you can subscribe to our newsletter on thecoherecollective.com so you never miss another episode. For updates on all of our stuff, follow us at The Cohere Collective on Instagram, our Facebook page, and our LinkedIn page. You can also follow me on Instagram at Lillian Reese Brown, and if you feel so inclined, please leave an honest review or rating. This truly helps me reach people who will resonate with my content and hopefully reach my goal of making the world a better place. Sharing the pod is also a great way to start conversations with important people in your life if you were inspired by anything in today's episode. Right now, I'm feeling full. One, I just had dinner. I had some dumplings, and so I'm feeling full in that way. But also emotionally full, because listening back to this conversation with one of the people that I love most in this world was just really rewarding to hear how much we know that we've both grown, not just in our own journeys, but also together as friends, that we've grown in our relationship as well. And that makes me really grateful and really proud that I have this strong friendship. One last time, thank you for being here. I just can never reiterate that enough. It truly means the world to me. And I hope you feel like you are living more coherently. I will catch y'all next time. Love.